Hi everyone, it's Tonya and I'm excited today to bring you a card tutorial for Limor Weber Designs. I am going to feature the Stampers Big Brush Artist Pens from Faber-Castell Design Memory Craft today. These are the products that I will feature, and I will put a link to those down below for you to easily reference in Limor's shop. And I'm going to start out with a watercolor paper that I am sketching out a scene of stacked pots. This is a very popular design in landscaping here in Florida around commercial property as well as on porches, so I thought it would be fun to use this as inspiration for my card design. So you see a piece of recycled packaging there on the right, and I'm going to use that as a palette for my color once I get all of my sketch drawn out. I'm going to start out with my purple violet number 136, and then I'm going to add the manganese violet number 160. And what I'm doing is taking a very small round paintbrush, and it's slightly moistened, and then I'm picking up the color with a moistened paintbrush and then stippling it onto the cardstock in a cone fashion. I'm not making sure I fill in all of the dots because I want to come back and add some shadows and some highlights as I work around. It's hard to see the manganese violet number 160, but it is there. So you'll start seeing it turn a pinkish hue as I add color, and that's that color. So now I'm just going to continue to fill in all of my flowering areas, and again I'm doing this in a cone shape. And now I've come back with the manganese violet number 160, and I'm going to just drop a few little spots here and there around directly onto the cardstock, and then I'm going to come back with the purple violet number 136 and add a few more shadows, and then now I'm going to come back with a little bit more water and sort of blend those out. So for my top flowers, I'm going to use the medium flesh tones. So I'm going to start out with the medium flesh tone on my palette, picking it up with water, and then as you'll see, I'm just dragging out a line of color in a semicircle, and that's going to create my little Cosmo daisy type flower design. And allow that to dry a little bit. This is the medium flesh number 131. And while it's drying, I'm going to go ahead and work on my bottom flowers, which I'm using for my first color, cadmium yellow number 107, and these are just going to be like your typical circle daisies. Notice I'm putting some color down at the base too. That's going to look like some of the flowers have fallen out of the pot and onto the ground. So once the top has dried a little bit, I'm going to come back with my Caput Mortium number 169, and I'm just going to kind of put some dots there in the center of my daisies. Some of them are going to look like they're reaching up to the sky, and some of them are going to be a full frontal, and then some of these later on in the sketch are going to be turned backwards, so it gives a really interesting look to my pot. And notice the flowers on the bottom are very small. I'm trying to keep different scales of flowers so that my final composition has some nice ranges of sizes. So now I'm going to come in with my greens and do some of my leaves. I'm going to start out with on my palette there the chromium green opaque number 174, and I'm keeping my concentrated color on one side and then with a moist brush just pulling the color out to create a more highlighted look. So again, I'm just going to go ahead and add those all around. Now I'm going to mix together some of the brown, which was the Caput Mortium, with some of the yellow, and then I'm going to add that to the base of my daisies around the center part and drag it outwards towards the edge of the petal, and that's going to give it a few shadows and just a tone on tone effect. I've also scribbled up there in the top some of the green gold number 268, so you'll notice that I keep going up there to that area to pick up some color as well. So that's going to give a really nice tonal range between the cadmium yellow number 107 and the green gold 268. So now I'm coming in with the light flesh number 132 and just drawing directly onto my cardstock with that, and that again is going to offer some shadows for the Cosmo daisies that are up at the top. And then taking a little bit of a moistened brush and pulling some of that color back out and just really trying to blend the colors together. I love this effect. It's so fun and so easy to do. Now I'm going to come back with my May Green, which is number 170, and add some highlights to my leaves there. It's a really nice yellow green, so it'll give an interesting contrast to the darker green that we used before. So as I continue to work around the cardstock, you'll notice that I'm really using the guidelines that I laid down first with the pencil to keep me from overfilling these pots, because I really want the pot shape to come into play, which you'll see in just a few minutes. But as I do this and just continue to add color and shadows and highlights throughout the pieces, notice that I'm working in the top and then moving down to the bottom and then over to the right. And that's to avoid really oversaturating my paper or my cardstock, because the more water you add, it's more likely to bleed into the other colors, and I really want to make sure that I'm careful not to get my greens inside my yellows. Every time I wet my brush, I try to go back to the paper towel and blot the moisture from my paintbrush. That helps to keep it from being too oversaturated. Now I'm going to come back with that flesh tone and add a few leaves there in the background. That's going to make it look as if my flowers are pointing in the other direction. And now I am going to take the cold gray VI235 and add a few shadows there to the center of my daisies. And then I came back with the darker green, which is the chromium green opaque, and just added a few more dots to the back of the daisies that are pointing in the other direction. Just love these. They're so fun and such a simple flower to draw too. So now I'm going to come back with that pink, which was the medium flesh number 131, and drop some of that down into my lavender pieces. And then I'm going to come back with the brown, which is the Caput Mortium number 169, and I'm going to start building out my flower pots starting at the bottom. Notice that I am keeping my original touch of the color in the shadowed areas, and then I decided to add a little bit more of a yellow tone to these by adding the green gold, and notice I'm putting just a very small amount of that on there. I want these to look like terracotta pots. And then I came back to do my shadows with the green gold, and just staying right at the edge of those pots where they would be the darkest. So now it's time to do the second pot, and I start out by tracing around the outer edges of the pot. That's going to keep it kind of dark in those spots. And then as I add color, I go back to those areas and pull the color back towards the center. And I'm being very careful not to oversaturate this because, like I said, I don't want my colors to mix. So to give this more of a terracotta look, I'm going to come back with the Scarlet Red number 118 and drop some of that color there. I want the tops of my pots to be like an enamel glazed pot, and then the bottoms to look terracotta. So I'm coming in directly with that color so that it's really nice and saturated, and working that out, blending it out, and then pulling some of that color down into the base of the pots to give them the terracotta look at below. And then notice that all my shadows are being added with that green gold, and then I had one more leaf to add, which was coming back with the green opaque 174. So this, you can really see that these pots are starting to come together. Overall, it took me about an hour to draw this from start to finish, and I didn't think that was too bad, and I'd never done this before. I was just piddling around and thought these were really fun. It's really cool because I found it very relaxing, and it would be super simple to create this style card several times, especially if you were in a situation where you were traveling, because the markers travel really well. So it's easy enough to pack them in a suitcase and they're not too overwhelming. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and continue this out with my third pot up at the top, and you can really see how this is starting to come together. These stacked pots like this are so fun. I see them on people's porches all the time. I see them in landscaping around commercial property and things like that. So once I get everything laid down the way I want to, I'm going to hit that with my heat gun and just set that color. Remember, these are the Stampers Big Brush Artist pens, so they are made with the India ink, which means that they can go on like watercolor initially, but then once they dry, they will be completely permanent. So I don't have to worry about, once the colors are dry, worrying about them cross-contaminating or becoming muddy. So I've now saturated my card base down at the bottom, and I've added a very liberal amount of the May green down at the bottom. And now I'm taking my paintbrush and just kind of working that color around, and that's going to offer some shadows in my grassy areas. Just kind of working that into the cardstock. Try not to oversaturate it or scrub it too hard, or you'll end up with little pricked marks. Now I'm going to do some negative painting around my flowers, and this is the light cobalt turquoise 154. I'm adding the color really dark around the pots because that's where my shadows are going to be, and really close to the base. And then I'm just dragging the color out towards the outer part of the card with water, so it becomes less saturated as we move out away from the flower pots. I also have switched to a flat brush. Again, it's a very small brush, but it's still a flat brush. And now I'm going to come back with the cobalt green number 156, which is a dark turquoise, and I'm going to add some shadows there around the base of my flowers and also around my pots. It offers a really nice shadow contrast. If you add that color directly to your palette, then wet it and bring it over, it kind of desaturates it a little bit. So now to finish off my shadowed areas, I'm going to come back with the cold gray I-230, which is the lightest of the grays, and just touch in some areas that would be highly concentrated or highly, the shadowed areas. The base of the inside of the flowers, between the pots, and around the edges of the pots, and then under the rim of the pot. Then I came back with the Chromium Green Opaque 174, which is the dark green, and added a few flicks of that into my flower pot base, and then around the horizon area, and then into some of the grassy areas. And then I came back with the May green and just added in some highlights to those areas as well, and then finished blending it out by adding some more of the darker green. Now I'm going to come in with my Aquarilla pencil, and this is in the green, and I'm just going to add some more sharp details in those shadowed areas with these pencils. I like it because the pencils offer a different type of texture, so they're very, very sharp. The edges become very sharp and defined, and then just blending those out with a slightly moistened paintbrush. Again, not a lot of water. I don't want it to really be oversaturated. Then I'm going to come back and add those same sharpened areas to the base of the flower pot. Now for the inside of my card, I have chosen a card that is an A2 size, and it's top folding. That's the base is going to be 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and then I've cut a border of a white cardstock down to, I think it's 4 by 5 1/4, and then I've trimmed out my flower pots so that they are 3 3/4 by 5. So I have a really nice border, and it looks very clean there on the front. I was going to stamp a sentiment here on the front and then decided against it. Instead, I think I'm going to add the sentiment to the inside. So I'm going to start out with my T-square ruler and just draw a faint line with the pencil, and then I'm going to come back with my Stampers Big Brush, or my Pitt Artist pen. These are from the Essential pen set, and this is the brush tip pen. I'm going to write out the word beautiful right on the line, keeping it very scripty. If you're not comfortable with your handwriting, you can always use a stamp to do this. step, but I like the look of the hand lettering, and I've really gotten into it lately. Once I have my big bold word down, then I'm going to go back and fill in with the other words, which is have a, beautiful, and then I'll fill in the word day under the word beautiful. So for the finer details, I'm using my Essential Artist pens, and these are, this is the black 199, and this is the small tip. So it's a super fine, and I really love the way these write. If you're into hand drawing and doodling, these pens are fantastic because they will not bleed once they dry, because again, they're the India ink, so you don't have to worry about them smearing. Once everything's dry, I'm going to come back and erase all of those pencil marks that I had put there, and my card is complete. So here's a close-up of what the daisies look like, and like I said, it's very impressionistic, but I really love the look of this overall. And then here's the bottom of the flower arrangement. And then here is the overall look of the card once it's completed. And then this is the inside of the card where the hand lettering is. And I just absolutely love the way this turned out. I know your friends would love to get a hand-drawn card like this. So thank you so much for hanging out with me today through this process video. I hope I've given you a few ideas on how to use your Stampers Big Brush Artist Pens as watercolors. Again, if you are deciding to follow along with me, please hashtag following Tonya Gibbs in your social media so that I can see what you guys are creating. Again, thank you so much, and don't forget that a detailed blog post will be listed in the links down below in the description box. Again, thank you so much for hanging out with me today, and if you've enjoyed this production, please give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment, and share it with a friend.